This is the rear axle out of a 2006 Chevrolet Colorado, and it is the key to making Stink Bug do modern highway speed. Now, obviously an axle swap was always part of the plan. I've alluded to it multiple times, and it wasn't even really supposed to be a secret. That old Eaton HO52 is what we had. It was a full floater 8-lug. It is bulletproof, but really hard to find parts for and super duper limited in gear ratio, which is our problem. They only ever made a 456, a 514, and a 410. The internet will tell you they made a 390. If you have one, show me. The easiest swap would have been to find a 410 center section out of like a 3/4 ton C20 pickup, stuff it in there, and we'd get some ratio that way. I looked. I am pretty sure I know of every HO52 on the West Coast. They're all 457s, just like mine. Showed you our new axle, old one's out. Let me go through a quick list of reasons why I think this axle is the right one for us and why I hunted it out on Facebook Marketplace. Reason number one, the width. That is the most important thing. This one's 63 inches wide, so is our old one. It's gonna go back in the same spot without any crazy fabrication. Reason number two, you may notice there's 6 wheel studs. That's traditional Chevy 6 on 5.5, which means it matches the front, our half-ton hubs, so we can get out of the weird, sketchy spacer adapter game that we've been playing ever since we put modern wheels on this truck. Number three, getting rid of the huck brakes. That's a given with basically any axle that's made after 1954, but that means we can get brake parts, wheel seals, wheel bearings, all that stuff, you know, was made in 2006. Much better. I said in the drive video, this thing needs a 373. Guess what this has? 373. Guess what else it has? The guy didn't know that I bought it from. When I got home, I popped the cover off. This is a factory G80 option axle, which means it has a locker. Yes, it's the GM Gov lock, which has its issues, but it's not open, and I only paid 125 bucks for this thing. Still waiting on a couple parts from Barnes 4-wheel drive, spring purchase, U-bolt, stuff like that. But we got a lot to do to prep, so we're gonna get started. We're bottom side now. Let me show you where I think we're gonna start today. Because this is the axle that's hopefully gonna stay in the truck for a long time until we totally explode it with an LS motor or something, I wanna kind of make it nice back here. One thing that I have parts to fix today and is gonna make it easier to pull measurements is fixing this. That is extremely worn out spring pin bushings on both sides. I have all the parts from LMC. I think I'm gonna try to heat and beat and get this apart and replace that while we're waiting on purchase and stuff, because I can't really mock the axle up without a purge. I don't know if they're gonna come out. Truthfully, I tried once already and I couldn't get them to move. I bought some different air hammer bits and have been soaking them in a penetrant. Hoping today's a little bit different. The front is going to be even more challenging because of how they built this bed. This is the pin. It's got to come out this way. This pin has to come out this way. I don't even know if I can get my hands in there. New axle, it'd be nice to have leaf springs that are like where they're supposed to be. It's also going to help when we go to pull measurements for purchase and stuff like that. So here's all the stuff I got and how it is supposed to go together. Brand new, I think what they call a spring pin. This is the bushing. You can see how they're not sloppy when they're new. And then this is the little retainer pin, kind of like what holds the kingpin in. Now I got a bunch of stuff and none of it was super cheap. So I would like to use what we can. Loosen this lock pin, we'll call it. It comes out of this hole. We're gonna drive it out this way. If that comes out, like, we're feeling good about ourselves. Then step two is go under the frame and try to hammer this pin out, which should let this whole kind of shackle drop. And then there should be a really worn out bushing and that spring pin and stuff in there that we have parts for. Burning a little grease. Oh, it shot out fast. Neat. Okay. That's great news. I don't know if the pin is stuck in the bushing. I don't know if there is a bushing left. The fact that there's so much grease actually gives me a small amount of hope. Ow. I just air hammered my hand. Major progress was made, as you can see. Oh, I need a lift. There it is. All right, so obviously this stuff is worn out. Kind of looking like The spring eye bushing is in worse shape than, let's call it, the spring pin bushing. So after a bunch of heating and beating, I do have the entire leaf spring out of the passenger side. This was super tough. I didn't think I was gonna get it out. I ended up being successful after a huge amount of effort. I'll show you the leaf spring and stuff, and then I think while we have the space, we're gonna go ahead and maybe trim off some of this old overload bracket that we don't need, because we can get to it right now. These are the bushings that came out of it. You can see how ovaled they are. This one started to split. These are actually the spring eye bushings. So I got one in there. This one fits in here. I don't think it's supposed to fit so loose, but that's kind of what we got going on. We got one side apart and done. I'm gonna clean everything up, grease it, new pins, bushings, paint it, cut that stupid overload thing off. That side will go back together, and then we have to do the driver's side, which is 3 more pins, a bunch more air hammering. That was quite a battle, but we did win. I jumped ahead because it was taking forever. We got rebuilt leaf packs. There's still a little bit of wiggle, but it's way better than it was. I hit everything with a coat of paint under here. It is looking pretty nice, actually. Try to push this thing under, get it in the neighborhood for now. So one thing about this axle, compared to the old one that we took out, is I think it's probably at least 100 pounds less. This pumpkin is actually aluminum, and then the axle tubes are steel. It should be a lot less mass for our geo tracker shocks to try to control. I have the center of the axle marked, and I know that outside of frame to outside of frame on this truck is 36 inches. So 18 is half of that, and we're gonna line those marks up. And then we'll set the perch on and then just kind of see how it looks, put a little tension on it, double, triple check our measurements. We'll have to grind some of the paint off, but for now I just kind of want to look at it. So we're under the truck, looking forward. Got a laser level magneted the underside of the bed, and I have it lined up with a mark I made right here that's 18 inches over from the outside of the frame rail. That is center. You can kind of see it traveling up. This silver mark is the center of this axle. So the idea is to line this silver mark up, this red laser mark that's currently on it. So we obviously need to go that way, 1.5 inches or so. And then that'll be close enough kind of to get the feeling. And then we can pull like a corner to corner, do something. We'll make sure that we're happy before we tack anything. You're along for the ride here. You can see that we're a bit off on our mark, but that is okay. I'm gonna go ahead and lift the axle up to meet the spring, and we'll center that later. The axle is supported only by the jack right now, but I'm really happy with kind of where it's sitting, how it's sitting, and the perches fitting the axle tube. Haven't pulled any measurements yet, so nothing's final, but I think I'm gonna take this opportunity to put the U-bolts and spring plates in loosely and just see how everything's gonna fit. Now, I bought all this stuff from like an off-road shop, and I told them I had a 14 bolt because the axle tube diameter is close. It's real heavy duty, like it's overkill. But here's what we got. Spring plates and U-bolts, which are giant and overkill, but you know, that's underrated. So we'll end up with the spring plate on top like that, and the round part of the U-bolt will come up through, and the bolts will actually be on top this time. So I whipped these things up quick, which are really simple, but are gonna help us with our measurements because we're by ourselves. All it is a piece of angle with holes drilled in it, and it fits across like that. That way we've got a flat surface to measure to, from, against, whatever. Now, one thing to note, it is not technically wheel mount surface to wheel mount surface. There's another one of these on the other side because it's gonna bottom on the hub first. That's also fine, but if you were using this measurement to spec wheel offset or something like that, you're gonna have to account for this 1/4 inch. But now we'll be able to take like here to the frame because we get up over the hub, which is the hard part when you're trying to measure from here with a tape or something, right? I think we have the axle pretty much where it's gonna be. All the measurements check out. I went ahead and measured from the frame here to I took them off, but to my little measurement sticks that I made. That's dialed in, and then I went ahead and hung the patent pending lug nut plumb bob here, and I measured from the back of the axle to it to make sure that it was not in there crooked, and it's not. Everything looks really good. I don't know if you can see down there, but I set the pinion angle to match what it was with the old rear end. It looks like this drive line is gonna work. All we'll need is a conversion joint, which I actually have. That's something I was worried about, that if the pinion yoke depth effectively was different, we may have to lengthen or shorten this drive shaft. It doesn't look like we're gonna have to, which is another positive for this axle. I think people are sleeping on the Colorado axle for these trucks. I mean, it's not bolt-in, but it's pretty close. You got to weld perches and that's about it, and shock mounts, whatever. Speaking of welding, we're gonna do that because all the measurements look good. I wanna lock this thing down. This is where it gets pretty permanent here, which I think that's okay. We checked everything. These are the shock mounts I got. It's just a formed bracket with, it's actually got a radius this way and this way if you wanted to mount your shocks perpendicular to the axle tube, or that would be parallel, I guess. I gotta tune up this saddle a bit. It doesn't fit real good yet, but it will. And then we'll kind of just go by, we know the axle's centered and the shock mounts are mounted at the top, so we'll just kind of, it is where it is. And we'll tack these in too while we're down here. Shock tabs are loosely tacked into place. I had to grind some of that powder coat off the axle tube and didn't get the greatest tack weld in the world on it, but they are stuck where I want to put them. So now we're gonna pull this entire axle back out. We'll finish weld, sand, prep, everything. While our axle is drying, we need to work on this, which is the back half of our two-piece driveline. This is where this could get a little weird if you're trying to replicate this at home. A 3100, a half ton, would have a torque tube the whole way back to the axle. So if you were doing this in a half ton, you're getting a driveline made no matter what. Like, you can't make it work just the way that that axle housing mounts to the leaf spring. Like, it can't be done. We are open driveline, which when I say that, just think of any driveline you've ever seen except for a Corvette. We're open driveline the whole way back, just like your pickup, which is great. It means that we can use this shaft. The length works out, the pinion offset between the two rear ends works out. It's gonna work. What I have to do is get that universal joint out of it and run what's called a conversion joint. This is a 1350 U-joint on the truck side. Our new rear end is a GM 3R or a 1344 or a S44. There's a million different names for it, but it's different. Basically is the important part. So I have a universal joint that is 1350 on two ears and 3R on the other two, which will let us bolt everything together. I'm worried about beating up the yoke with the air hammer, but nothing is working. So what I'm gonna do is try to cut it out of there, which I'm sure is not recommended, get the cross out, and then I can probably push the caps out. Okay. Now I should be able to press those out. I would like to think with like a C-clamp. Finally, U-joint's out. Not gonna put the other one in yet. What we are gonna do, hit the axle with another coat of paint, so I'm sure it's dry. And then we have some wheels to clean up, and I'll show you what we're gonna run for right now for wheels on this truck. All right, this is what we're gonna run for wheels, at least for right now. These are actually off a 2000 Toyota 4Runner, but the most important part is 16 inches, 6 on 5.5, 7 inches wide. That means the tires that we literally just bought will fit and will work. I truthfully don't know if I'm gonna love the look or not. It's like a pretty clean 5-spoke. Finish is coming off almost everywhere. This one I already cleaned up. There's 3 more up there that we're gonna clean up right now before we mount anything on them. Here's the other ones up here. You may have seen them in the background in a couple shots, I'm not sure. I was kind of stuck on wheel choice because I wanted to use those tires that we just bought because they're the right height and like they're brand new, which was kind of stupid. I wish I wouldn't have done that almost. Because let me tell you, I found some incredible vintage wheels that would have looked amazing on this thing. Not a single one of them was a 16. Most of like the cool slot mags or the old center lines or whatever, they're 15-inch stuff, which maybe is where we're gonna go eventually. So the plan was to scour Facebook Marketplace for a set of narrow 16s that were 6 on 5.5 that would work for now, and this is what I came up with. I paid $200 for these. They had tires on them. I already took them off. I'm gonna dump the tires back on Marketplace for $100, and we'll have $100 into rollers, which will be fine. And truthfully, my wife drives a 4Runner, so these could be spare wheels for her if she ever needs them. These 3 are disgusting. We're gonna clean them up, hose them off. We may mount tires on at least 2 of them because this axle's going back in here soon. The other thing I'm not super fond of with these is they use a mag style lug nut seat, which is the kind with the shank and there's no taper. It doesn't center itself really. I think that's silly. I think a taper center is way better. It's more secure. And it gets really confusing when like the back of this is M12 1.5, which is the same as a 4Runner, so those lug nuts are pretty easy to find. The front is 7/16/20, which those mag style are easy to find too for like Kragers, but the shank is a little bit smaller and we're gonna have to be careful when we're bolting them on. I expect this to maybe take a couple passes, I don't know. The first one I just left out in the rain. That wasn't paint's dry, tires are mounted, it is time to put this rear end in for what's hopefully the final time. This morning off camera, I went ahead and got the conversion U-joint installed. I'll show you how that works when we get there. Oh, I'm a little far over. Oh, that's in the pin. Let's help ourselves out and just dump a couple U-bolts in there right now so this doesn't come crashing down. I painted these plates up also. We're gonna double wash her. I also want to make sure when I tighten this thing down that I get a good squeeze on it before I run out of threads. But in general, this is about what it's gonna look like under here. I'm gonna get the jack out of the way. We'll probably connect the shocks quick, and then we'll connect the driveline. Should be able to shove this shock in here. Kind of doing this blind and backwards, but this is just the vent. We'll deal with that later, but you can see it here. This is the 1350 side, right? It's big, it's got external snap rings. This part that I have taped is the 3R side. That's what makes it a conversion joint. So it fits right in here. And then I've got a brand new strap kit to attach everything. Now a 3R is what they call an internal snap ring style, which instead of the snap ring being out here, there's one on the inside, internal. So here is another reason why this axle is the one to swap, in my opinion, right? Same driveline. Otherwise, we'll be waiting on drive shaft shop. Now these U-joint bolts, if you're anything like me, you're gonna wanna really reef them down, and that's actually, they recommend against it. They only want like 20 foot-pounds on these things. They're through, I can tell. Is there just junk in it? Do not like. I might run a tap through these. This is a 5/16 24 in a tap socket, which if you don't own, seriously stop what you're doing, and even though you're watching this video, go buy yourself one. Another pro tip, since we're here, do this before your rear end is in the truck. One more thing I want to do under here before we bolt wheels on. Two more things, sorry. We're going to mount this vent, which is going to be zip tie action, but what we're going to do now is deal with this brake hose. As you can see, it heads off towards the driver's side, which is the opposite of where our actual rear brake line comes in. Ours comes in over on the passenger side, so I have another one of these, and this is just a through mounting hole, so I'm thinking if I could flip it over and get something headed that way, we'll still need to make a little bit of like an extension line. All right, this is also the part of the show where I tell you, unfortunately, we're not driving this thing today, and there's a $9.80 reason why. This axle, 2006 GM, so it's metric. They use M10 bubble flares. I can't make those, but it doesn't even really matter. That's not why we can't drive it. I've ordered an adapter to go from M10 bubble DIN flare to 7/16 24 inverted, which is what the rest of the truck is. That doesn't come until after this video has to go out. So you do not get to see it drive today. We do not get to test our new gear ratio, although that's all I want to do because we're not going to have rear brakes. We are going to put the wheels on, we're going to push it outside, we're going to have a look. But driving next week, once I get one fitting, and I'm not kidding, it was $9.80. Let's at least get the brake line pointed the right direction. This is like just a little distribution block. I thought this was maybe a banjo, but it's not. This is just a mount, so we're gonna break these free. Ooh, maybe. We might have to heat those up. I thought this axle is too new for that. I'm gonna get my torch, I guess. I don't wanna round these off, because I like that this is all factory mounted. It's got factory clips. The brakes back here look good, but I do need to get those out. All right, change of plans. For whatever reason, that's super stuck, and I actually don't own a set of flare nut wrenches, which is hard to believe, and I don't have a good reason for it, but now I have a good reason to get a set. Doing that does nothing for us right now because I don't have that fitting anyway. So we're gonna pivot. I'm gonna leave that frozen, get a set of flare nut wrenches. By then I'll also have my fitting. We can do all the brake stuff at once. I'm dying to see what this thing looks like with the 4Runner wheels on it. So let's do that. Let's bolt them on, get it on the ground, push it out. Maybe we'll even do the fronts. This is important. We're checking width, we're checking visual, checking offset. All of that stuff is different now, and I hope it works. Ooh, it's gonna be flush. The rear doesn't move back and forth a whole bunch, but I don't know. We'll have to see it with weight on it, but that's gonna be closer than I really thought to the inner fender. All right, this side is equally close, which is actually a good thing, right? Because that means our measurements are not wrong and we don't have one side way poking out and the other side way sunken in. It's about the same width as the HO52, but these wheels are different. Remember, they're a ½ inch wider and they have a little less offset, or more negative offset, which means it pushes everything out towards the outside, which is kind of what you're seeing here. I do think it's going to fit and clear, and it's actually probably going to look really good. A nice wide stance with tight fender clearance looks better than sunken in. We're going to see what it looks like with its weight on it. It's going to suck that tire up deep into the fender, and I'm hoping it clears. All right, it's off the stands, but on the jack, so that's about right. It's just balanced there. I'm gonna get it down. It does clear on both sides, but you wouldn't want to go much tighter. Oh yeah. I mean, it's not a paper slipper, but it's a poor man's wallet slipper. Here it is in here. You see my fingers? To be totally honest with you, it doesn't look bad. I like that look. I think while it's pushed out, I'm gonna use this opportunity to jack the front up, get the wheels off, do that tire swap right now. That way, I know for sure they fit. I don't have to order spacers or anything weird to clear the steering gear in the front. Since we can't drive it this weekend anyway, I need to know that information like now so I can order something if I need it for next weekend so we can do our first drive. Pop this thing in gear quick. Speaking of gear, you can see my note. Gear oil, something that I don't have in this rear end and I cannot forget. I got some out, kind of forgot to put it in. I have updates and unfortunately another reason why we're not able to drive this thing this week. Let me show you what I found. I got the sketchy front wheel spacer deals off, okay? So this is the factory hub. See how short these studs are? When I put the wheel on and tighten it up, this gets tight to the hub before the wheel gets tight to this. So, not gonna work. Easy fix though. We're gonna run a little bit of spacer. We could use one anyway. Let me show you what I mean. Check this out. See how the wheel's not tight to the hub, but all of these lug bolts are. The other reason why we could use a spacer is if you look in here, it clears, but it is really tight to that steering gear. I would like to move that. The farther out we move the wheel, the better that clearance is gonna get. Which basically means I'm bolting these on for now, but obviously we cannot drive on them like that. A 1-inch spacer, something thick enough to have its own studs. Then maybe we can convert the front to the same M12, which, because those studs fit a little better, and we can go taper seat to center up the spacer. Anyways, it works in my head. But what I'm saying is I'm gonna mount the other one. Unfortunately, this setup as it is right now is not gonna work, but we can fix it. To prove my theory to myself, I took one of my brand new lug nuts and I ground the end down just a little bit and the wheel tightened up. So that shank is in fact too long, which makes sense because you can buy them with different shank lengths. I totally was guessing, had no idea what I needed. You can see how flush we are in the rear and a little bit sunk in the front. So I'd like to move that tire out closer to the fender. We're not gonna be able to go as much because we still need to be able to turn. All right, well, I think that's gonna do it for this episode of Tiger's Garage. We have officially fixed what was probably my biggest complaint about stink bug. We just haven't tested it yet. We both have to wait till next week. Thank you for following along. Please subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see you guys next week. Maybe we'll take it to town or something. Maybe we'll try to do 60. I'm not sure we got the brakes for that, but you never know until you try.